Hello friends, today I am going to talk about how to get Metabase running on AWS. There are two ways in which you can do this. One is to use Metabase provided AWS Elastic Beanstalk. It's very simple. You can use this link and follow the instructions and you're done. However, when you want to have complete control of the environment, there is another way to set up your own EC2, set up your own VPC, and get Metabase running and expose it to your end users. And I'm going to talk about that approach today. So if you scroll down on Metabase website, you will see custom install, and we will download metabase.jar on EC2 and then get it running and configure it to run on internet. So very quickly, I am going to talk about the architecture that we are going to implement as part of this tutorial. So we have our database on which we want to perform the analytics running on on-prem data center, which is protected by a firewall. Uh, uh, the idea would be to set up the AWS environment under a VPC with public and private subnet, configure the route tables, configure internet gateway, NAT gateway, set up the EC2, install the Java application Metabase, run it on the EC2, which is on the public subnet, configure the VPN settings on EC2 so that it can be accessed. It can access the SQL on-prem data center through the firewall, and that's it. So that is what this demo will comprise of. I have set up this fresh AWS account for Metabase. The very first thing that we have to do is set up our own VPC. I will click on VPC. And there is a default VPC which you can use with the default route table and subnets, but I'm going to set up a brand new VPC with my own subnet and route tables and internet gateway. So let me launch VPC wizard, and we will use public and private subnet. It can be single public subnet as well, but just to demonstrate the scenario, I am going to use VPC with public and private subnet. I will go with default CIDR block. I do not want any IPv6, and let me name this VPC as Metabase VPC, and equal distribution for subnets. I do not have any preference for availability zone, but you can always choose the availability zone for each subnet. This is my public subnet, and this is my private subnet. And okay, so before we can set up a private subnet, we need to have elastic IP allocated, because that will use the NAT gateway to route the internet traffic from the private instances. So I am going to open another window where we will define the elastic IP. So it's as simple as allocate new elastic IP, and remember, you're not charged for elastic IP as long as it is associated with a running EC2 instance. Otherwise, you're always charged. So I'm going to use the Amazon tool. Close. So here I should see that VPC now. So I'm going to select that VPC. And tenancy is default. I do not want a dedicated. If I choose a dedicated, it will not allow me to use the shared tenancy. So that's it. So as you can see, it is creating a public subnet, a private subnet, NAT gateway, which will be used for instances in private subnet to connect to internet. Um, and internet gateway will be used to directly expose the instances running on the public subnet. So as you can see, VPC has been successfully created. The benefit of using the launch wizard is you don't have to manually go and create subnets. You don't have to manually go and create route tables, internet gateways, and NAT gateways. So let me quickly show you. Uh, yes, as you can see, the Metabase VPC is created. You can see the CIDR blocks. We have subnets created as Metabase demo private subnet and public subnet. So if you look at the route table for private subnet, it will have all the traffic connected to internet via NAT, and for public subnet it is internet gateway. So, and you can always go and take a look at the route tables. So that's what VPC is created. Next step would be to create the EC2 instance, and we are going to use free tier EC2 instance just to avoid the charges. I'm going to select launch instance, and there is no reason why it cannot be done using Linux box, but I want to show you the VPN settings on Windows box. So I'm going to search for Windows, and this Windows Server 2019, I think this is free tier eligible, so I'm going to select this server, and by default it has selected t2.micro, which is eligible for free tier. I'm going to configure the instance detail. So here we are going to use the VPC that we created for Metabase demo. And I'm going to put it in the public subnet, not the private subnet. And I'm going to assign it a public IP because we want to access Metabase over internet. And other settings, I will retain it as it is because I do not want to incur any other charges. So I'll keep the root as it is. I do not want anything else. And if you want to track the cost, you can always track the cost. Next is configure next security group, and this is important because we want we want to be able to RDP the Windows box, and we also want it to be open on the internet. So and normally Metabase jar runs on port 3000, so we'll have to open the port. So, but for now we will keep this setting as it is, and I will show you what happens when you do not have the ports open. So I'm going to name it as Metabase demo security group. Yeah, so we'll just keep RDP open, and I will say review and launch. So quickly review. Launch. And this is important. So in order to RDP the Windows box, we will need a key pair to generate the password. I'll say Metabase demo key pair and save it safely because this will be required when I'm generating the password. So your instances are now launching. We will quickly move to EC2 and see how our instance is doing. Okay, so it is the instance is already running. It is doing some checks, so we will wait for checks to complete. And this is your public DNS, so you can always go ahead and access your EC2 using this public IP. Okay, so as you can see, the EC2 instance is ready, and now we will connect to this EC2 instance. So very first step would be to download the remote desktop file. Then we will need the password. The password, remember in the step 1 we stored the key. This is the password. So I'm going to create a notepad file. Just store the password and also the public DNS of the EC2 instance and the user ID. Remember, user ID should always be prefixed with dot backslash, because otherwise it will take the default domain and it will never allow you to log in. I will show you what problem it could create. So here it has taken the default administrator. If I copy the password, it will say login attempt failed, which means there is some error. If you see, it is showing the default domain. So I'm going to change it and say use a different account. Administrator, the password, and say OK. And now it will connect to the remote desktop. So because this is the first time we are logging into this EC2 instance, it is going to apply some localized setting. I have to say yes. So this is a bare box, Windows 2019 server box. There is nothing available, so there is no Java. And for Metabase, we will need Java to run, and also we will have to download the metabase.jar. So let us start with opening the Internet Explorer. So I will not use recommended settings. Okay, let me use recommended settings. What happens is when you use enhanced security, every time you log in or connect to internet, it is going to keep popping up. So in order to avoid this, I'm going to reduce the enhanced security setup for internet, and your administrator will decide on this. So, but for demo purpose, I'm going to disable this. So you can see this is on here, and I'm going to make it off so that at least for the administrator, so that I can easily navigate through the internet and download the files that I need. Get started. Scroll down and metabase.jar and download metabase.jar. We will also have to download Java. So you can see metabase.jar is downloaded and Java setup is also downloaded. the meantime, going to copy metabase.jar. We try so that I can directly run it from the C drive. Open the command prompt. cd.dot. It looks like Java installation is done. Quickly verify that JRE folder is there. Yes, so we have Java runtime environment, and I'm going to start the metabase. So we say Java. Sure. Now this is setting up the metabase to run on port 3000. So once the installation is complete and the application is hosted, we can always go and access it as localhost just to verify. So as you can see, Metabase is now running on localhost. Now we have to enable it over the internet so that we can access it from anywhere. So for that, the setup is very simple. All we need to do is go and open the port on AWS security group for port 3000. So right now, if I want to access this from internet, it won't work because the port is not opened yet. So I will go to security group. This is the database security group. And I will open system TCP. Let's say 3000. Zero. We also need to modify the firewall settings here. So I'm going to define an inbound rule to allow traffic on port 3000, and this will be TCP. Allow connection. And so this is Metabase. Now we should be able to access and get finger. So now I can use Metabase remotely and do all the Metabase customizations that I want. Now, so the first task one is completed. Second task is to set up the VPN on the Windows box so that you can access your on-prem database. We have this on-prem box which is connected over VPN. I have the VPN host IP. I have LT2 TP IPsec pre-shared key. I also have my VPN credentials, and on this VPN box I have a database, SQL Server database which is running, and for which I want to do the analysis using Metabase. So let us start configuring the VPN first. add a VPN connection. I will use built-in default. Metabase VPN type, depending on the type. I have selected pre-shared key, and I'm going to copy paste the pre-shared key. Make some changes to the adapter settings. So I'm going to go to adapter options. Right click on Metabase VPN, properties, options, and I'll say allow these protocols. And I'm going to select chat protocol, and also on IPv4 go to advanced and check this default gateway and remote network. So if I don't uncheck this, once I connect VPN, RDP will disconnect. So it is very important that you use this gateway on remote network unchecked. We should be able to connect to VPN now. So VPN is connected and I am still connected onto RDP. So now I will configure Metabase to access this data. So the VPN is connected. The next step would be to connect the Metabase to the on-prem database. So first, let us configure Metabase admin. I'm going to give ID, set some password. Okay, so now it is asking to configure the database. You can do it now or do it later. Let us do it now. So the database that is running on my on-prem server is SQL Server. I'm going to give it a name, my on-prem SQL Server. Those would be the IP address of the server. By default, all the SQL servers they connect on port 1433, and if this is not approved, then you will have to check with your DB2 administrator on what port you can access your SQL server. I'm going to give the database. So you will have to know which database you want to connect. You will also need user ID and password to connect to the database. So if there was a problem, I should see an error message here, and bingo, it has gone through. I do not want to allow Metabase to collect any usage events, and that's it. So I have connected to my Metabase. As you can see, I can see my SQL server, and there's one more feature which is useful, but sometimes it does not make any sense. So what Metabase by default does is it replaces all the underscores by space and tries to give the table a meaningful name, and this is not something that I personally like. So I'm going to disable that feature. So I'm going to go to the admin panel and go to general.
friendly table and field names, I will set it to disable, because now when I set it to disable, I can actually map it to the table names that are there. So that completes the first part. So just to summarize, we have created EC2 instance on AWS, configured VPC, configured security groups and root table. We have installed Metabase and ran it on the EC2, opened the port 3000 both on the security groups and also on the Windows firewall, and that is how you can now use Metabase across. Now there is another tutorial on how to actually do the Metabase analysis, but that is not part of this scope. So this is where I will conclude this tutorial. I am going to submit another tutorial where I will talk about how you can create an RDS instance on EC2, migrate your on-prem database through the RDS, and then connect Metabase on running on this EC2 to that RDS, but that would be a separate tutorial. So thank you. I hope this was useful. Thanks. Bye.